Hello, and welcome to another Marvel Snap video. Today we're going to be looking at a deck featuring Devil Dinosaur, who has the ongoing ability plus 2 power for each card in your hand. With a full hand of 7, this brings Devil Dinosaur up to 17 power for only 5 energy, which is the highest power you can get on a card, aside from maybe an Apocalypse that got 3 discard triggers, and is definitely one of the most powerful cards in Pool 1. And what we're going to do is build the deck in a way that we can actually maintain a large hand size, so we don't want to be flooding all of our cards onto the board and playing too many low energy cards. The first card in the deck is Ant-Man, just an efficient 1-cost card and can help us win a location that the Devil Dinosaur is not in. Then we have Iron Fist, just a really flexible low-cost card that can help us get into some locations and gives us a few play options with the Angela. Then we have Nightcrawler, similar to the Iron Fist, just an effective 1-cost card that we can use to get ahead on the board. Then we have Angela, just the premier 2-cost card of Pool 1. She can get quite large and will be a primary card for winning a location that does not contain a Devil Dinosaur. Next up is Cable, who puts the bottom card of your opponent's deck into your hand. Not only does this replace itself to maintain a large hand size for Devil Dinosaur, the information you can gain from that card can be very valuable. Either it's a resource that now you know they don't have access to and is a key part of their combo, or it can just give you some information as to what the opponent might be playing. Next up is Sentinel, who on reveal adds another Sentinel to your hand. Not the highest impact card, but when we play this it does not reduce our hand size and synergizes with the Devil Dinosaur. Next up we have Cosmo, who has the ongoing ability that on reveal abilities won't happen at this location. This can just be a nice disruptive tool and can be put in a location that we intend to play our Devil Dinosaur to, protecting us from an Enchantress. Then we have Moon Girl. On reveal, duplicate your hand. This can completely fill up our hand, giving us the full 7 cards for a full power Devil Dinosaur. But if we play this on turn 4 with a Devil Dinosaur already in our hand, this can duplicate the Devil Dinosaur and actually let us play a Devil Dinosaur on turn 5 and on turn 6. One thing to note is you do have a maximum hand size of 7, and the duplicated cards will start from left to right. So if you have too many cards in hand, you might not duplicate the card you want, and you have to be cognizant of that as you are playing cards in the earlier turns. Next up we have White Queen, who on reveal draws the highest cost card from your opponent's hand. You get a copy of this card, and it tells you what to play around in the future, since the highest cost card is typically a high impact card. Then we have Iron Man, just a fantastic 5-cost card. This can help us win the location that we don't have a Devil Dinosaur in, since Devil Dinosaur can typically win a location on its own, and can get some extra power out of our earlier plays. Then we have the signature card Devil Dinosaur, and lastly we're running America Chavez, who we won't draw before turn 6, which increases the odds that we will have our Moon Girl and our Devil Dinosaur in our hand on earlier turns, and since there's not a 6-cost card we're looking to play anyways, this might just be a good power push on the final turn. I do have a video that explains some of the math behind the consistency that America Chavez can add to your deck. I'll leave a link to that in the description below, and with that, let's hop into some games. So unfortunately, during recording, the real Bob Farm, my cat, knocked over the mic and disconnected it, and I ended up losing the audio for all of this recorded footage, so we're going to do a bit of post-commentary on these games. The first location for this one is Superflow, which is going to give us a lot of energy to work with, but we have to fight the urge to dump our hand since we do need a fairly decent hand size with the Devil Dino. We do have Moon Girl already, so we want to get a few cards onto the board so that we have space to duplicate our Devil Dinosaur. We're deciding where to put the Angela as far as a mystery location goes, because we don't want to cut off our Superflow energy. And we end up placing her on the right hand side so we can get an extra card over there before the location is revealed. The opponent goes with a Colossus, and that actually works out really well for them since the next location revealed is Hala, which will destroy all of the cards for the losing player. Now here we have the option to play Ant-Man and Cable, but since the Moon Girl can duplicate the Ant-Man for us, and the Cable will put an additional card in our hand, we don't want to commit too much to the board yet. We play the Cable, we'll get a peek at what they're up to, and we'll be able to go from there. They play Nightcrawler over to Hala, knowing they can move it out if we start pushing power there, but we're going to stay out of that location for now. We pull their Namor, and that, with the Colossus, kind of tells us they're probably playing an ongoing deck. Now, the Isle of Silence is the third location revealed, and that means our Devil Dinosaur will not be able to go there. So our game plan is to play a Devil Dinosaur to Hala and a Devil Dinosaur to Superflow. For now, we lead with the Moon Girl. This will fill up our hand, give us an extra Devil Dino, and we'll have an extra Ant-Man to work with if our plans end up changing. We didn't want to cap out the right-hand location too quickly. They play Jessica Jones, which puts a decent amount of power in that lane, but we are currently up over it, thanks to the Angela already being at 5. Now, we don't want to fill up Isle of Silence, and we don't want to cut off our Superflow, so we're actually going to go with a turn 4 Devil Dinosaur, thanks to the Superflow energy. With a nearly full hand, this is going to be a 15 power Devil Dinosaur, and we feel confident that there's nothing they can commit to the Hala that will end up coming over us. And if they choose to commit an additional card to Hala, which they do, it ends up being a huge swing. They play a Claw, which buffs up the Isle of Silence, but now both Nightcrawler and the Claw get destroyed, and that forces a quick retreat from our opponent. Victory. Devil Dinosaur is just so much power, and being able to get that out a turn earlier really helped. The first location for the second game is Kunlun, and because we have the Iron Fist in hand, we know we'll be able to sneak out some extra power on one of our cards on a future turn. So for now, we're going to hold, pad out our hand size, and see what we're working with. They commit a Nightcrawler, and we have to keep in mind that when it moves to Kunlun, it will get an additional 2 power as well. The next location revealed is Lumeria, which won't cause any of our cards to be revealed this turn. We are playing an on-reveal effect with the Cable, so we won't get the card this turn, but we still want to get that out on the board and get the information that Cable can provide us as soon as possible. The next location revealed is Avengers Compound, which means we will be forced to play there on turn 5, and something we're going to have to keep in mind. For now, our hand's getting a little full, and Cable's going to add a card, White Queen can add a card, or the Moon Girl can add multiple cards. So we're going to play the Iron Fist and the Sentinel, which will bump over to Kunlun and give him a bit of a power boost, and then we'll keep an additional card in hand. The Cable ends up pulling their Khazar, which gives us a huge amount of information. We know that their big buff play for their 1-cost cards is no longer available to them, and we can use this in our planning. We end up drawing a Nightcrawler of our own, which would be nice to combo with the Kunlun, but isn't going to fit too nicely into our curve. We go with the White Queen. This will show us the highest cost card in their hand, and let us know what we have to play around for the following couple turns. With Bishop in Kunlun, we know it could get very large because Khazar tells us they're going to be playing a lot of 1-cost cards, and the White Queen also tells us that the highest cost card in their hand is 1. So we have to expect a lot of small cards, but without their Khazar, we don't have to fear them. We end up drawing the Devil Dinosaur, which was perfect timing because we can throw that into the Avengers Compound and be pretty confident we can win that location. We're checking their hand size here just to see how many cards they can flood onto their board. With Ant-Man being the highest cost card in their hand last turn, it means they have at least 4 1-cost cards, which will buff the Bishop by quite a lot. And we know that Angela can get 3 extra buffs because the Nightcrawler can move out. And we're identifying that Lumeria is the second location we're going to want to try and win, since the Mantis and the Sentinel can't get buffed unless it's a blue Marvel. So we commit the Devil Dinosaur and pass to turn 6. So they end up filling up the lane with a Sentinel of their own, a Rocket Raccoon, which for sure gets the trigger since we have to play to Avengers Compound, and then they play the card they stole from us with Mantis, which ends up being our Ant-Man. And now we know what we have to beat in Avengers Compound. Right now we have to think about Blue Marvel, because even though they don't have Khazar, Blue Marvel can still give them a +4 power buff. And what we identify is if we play 1 card, it brings our Devil Dinosaur down to 15, and the 4 power buff from a Blue Marvel will beat us. But if we play 2 cards, we'll still be at 19 power in Avengers Compound, which will beat their 18. And so we know our best chance to win is Ant-Man and Iron Man, which takes 2 cards out of our hand, but still leaves us with enough power on the right, and should be more power than they can put into the center location. Bishop can get buffed up really large, and they already have a buffed up Nightcrawler, so we don't want to fight over Kunlun. And the only thing we feel we can lose to is the Blue Marvel, which they didn't have when we played the White Queen, so they only had 2 draws to draw it. We have our math sorted out, and we're feeling pretty confident. And we end up locking in that decision. They play a bunch of cards from their hand, one being Captain America and the other being an Ant-Man that we knew they had. And then they toss another Sentinel into Kunlun, and it ends up being super close, but because we committed the 2 cards from our hand, we come up just by 1 in both the center and the right hand location. Attilan is the first location of the next game, which is really unfortunate since it's going to shuffle our hand back into our deck, and we already have the Moon Girl and the Devil Dinosaur. And now we have a Rock in our deck, which is really going to impact our consistency. We're deciding if we want to play the Cable, because it replaces itself and doesn't actually thin out the deck for when we shuffle, but we do get a card from them and get to work with that information right away, and when they reshuffle, we know they won't be able to draw it. They go with an Angela, which means Washington, D.C. might get a large amount of power from them, but we steal their Khazar again. So Cable just stealing up all the Khazars from our opponents and really taking away a lot of the power they can push. Now, we want to get as many cards out of our hand as possible before Attilan triggers. Funny enough, the Rock will get 3 power from Washington, D.C., and by playing the Iron Fist out, we can't redraw it once we shuffle. We lock that in, and the opponent plays a Bishop to the vault, which we have to be worried about. We know that they're playing a low-cost deck, thanks to the Khazar, and Bishop can get out of control quickly. And the opponent snaps off the shuffle, which is definitely concerning. We want to get a couple of cards into the vault, potentially, since we won't be able to play there after turn 6. And now we're identifying that because we played the Iron Fist last turn, we're not actually going to be able to play White Queen to the vault. So we'll play her there temporarily, and she'll get shifted over to Washington, D.C. But now we know they have a Blue Marvel in hand and can add that to our calculations. We do draw the Devil Dinosaur on turn 5, and with 5 cards in hand, we know the Bishop can only get up to 6, and we can play the Moon Girl on the final turn to fill up our hand, which will make sure that the Devil Dinosaur can win the vault for us. Although it's ideal to play Moon Girl on 4 and get 2 Devil Dinosaurs, playing it later on turn 6 can still buff up the existing Devil Dinosaur on the board. We draw our America Chavez, which won't be quite effective enough since it will reduce our hand size. But because we already have 11 power in Washington, D.C., we commit our Sentinel and our Moon Girl to Attilan, which gives us a good power spread in those 2 locations, and our hand will be filled up and we'll have a full power Devil Dinosaur in the vault. So they have to commit quite a lot of cards, even with the blue Marvel buff, to come up over us. We're feeling very confident at this point, and we do snap, bringing this up to an 8-cube game. They're going to put a few cards on the board because we know they have a low curve, but it's not going to end up being enough thanks to our power spread. The rock actually ended up being fairly relevant and giving us a good amount of power thanks to Washington, D.C. Forced the opponent to have to commit cards to multiple locations, and in fact they overcommit to Washington, D.C., thinking maybe we would commit more cards there, because they go with the Electra to destroy our rock. But the 2 cards that end up in Attilan for them, the Korg and the newly revealed Rocket Raccoon, is not enough to come up over us. It's very close, 8 to 9, but the Devil Dinosaur easily wins the vault for us, and that's 8 cubes for the Devil Dinosaur. I hope you enjoyed the games. If you have any questions or feedback for me, make sure to leave those in the comment section below and I'll make sure to get back to you. And if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.